At 7:02 a.m., my phone rang once, and everything in my life detonated. Not because of a call, but because of what I didn't see when I looked outside. My driveway was empty. No flashing lights. No black and white patrol unit. No squad car. Just bare concrete where a marked police vehicle had been sitting for 2 straight years. And in that exact moment, I knew this wasn't a mistake. This was revenge. Let me back up, because the decision that HOA President Karen Peterson made at 2:15 a.m. would end 5 careers before lunch. My name is Austin Rivera. I'm 29 years old. Patrol officer. Plano Police Department, Texas. I work swing shift, which means I get home when most people are locking their doors and turning off lights. Part of our department's take-home vehicle program allows officers to park marked squad cars at home. It increases visibility, reduces response time. And yes, it's explicitly legal under Texas law. For 2 years, my patrol car sat in my driveway without a single issue. Neighbors waved. Parents felt safer. Crime stayed low. Then Karen became HOA president. 6 weeks ago. She showed up like a storm in a black pantsuit, heels clicking like a countdown timer. Perfect hair. Perfect smile. Absolute hunger for control. The kind of HOA leader who treats bylaws like weapons. And 3 weeks before this call, I arrested her son, Tyler Peterson. DUI. Blew a .14. Almost double the legal limit. Clean stop. Body cam rolling. Dash cam rolling. Paperwork flawless. I treated him like any other driver, because that's the job. Karen didn't see it that way. From that night on, my patrol car became her obsession. First, violation notices. Commercial vehicle. Noise disturbance. Residents uncomfortable with police presence. All lies. I showed her the statute. I showed her department policy. Texas law explicitly exempts take-home police vehicles from HOA restrictions. She didn't care. Facts don't stop someone who wants revenge, they just make them angrier. She escalated. Called my captain. Claimed I was harassing the neighborhood. That I was intimidating residents by parking a police car. Captain Mark Stevens reviewed my file, laughed once, and shut it down. That should have been the end. Instead, it became the beginning. Thursday night, I worked a brutal 10-hour shift. 3 domestics. 2 wrecks. 1 burglary scene that ran late. I got home just after midnight. Parked my squad car in my driveway like always. Walked inside. Fell into bed fully dressed. Exhausted. At 7:02 a.m., dispatch called. Officer Rivera, your unit is showing off-grid. I walked to the window. Empty driveway. My stomach dropped straight through the floor. This wasn't vandalism. This wasn't kids. This wasn't coincidence. Someone had taken a marked police vehicle. I called my captain immediately. Sir, my squad car is gone. There was a pause on the line. Then his voice hardened. If someone stole a police vehicle, he said, this is going to be a very bad day for them. 12 minutes later, 6 patrol units rolled into my cul-de-sac. Lights off. Engines humming. Captain Stevens stepped out of his unmarked car, scanning the scene like a crime in progress, because it was. No broken glass. No forced entry. Keys still inside my house. Only one explanation. Someone ordered it towed. And when the tow company finally confirmed who signed the order, every officer standing there went dead silent. Because the name on the work order wasn't just an HOA president. It was someone who had just crossed a line you can't uncross. The moment the tow company said her name, the air changed. Not tension. Not anger. Certainty. Yeah, the dispatcher said over speakerphone, completely unaware of the storm standing in my driveway. Work order was signed by Karen Peterson, HOA president. She said the vehicle was illegally parked and blocking common property. Captain Stevens didn't raise his voice. That was the terrifying part. He slowly held out his hand. Give me the phone. The tow dispatcher heard his badge number before he heard the warning. "This is Captain Mark Stevens with the Plano Police Department," he said calmly. "You towed one of my marked patrol units at 2:15 this morning. Correct?" "Yes, sir. We had a signed HOA authorization. You removed a government vehicle from private property without contacting the department," Stevens cut in. "Do you understand what that means?" Silence. Because now the dispatcher understood. This wasn't a parking dispute. This was theft of government property. A felony. A life-altering, never-work-again kind of felony. Stevens didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He simply asked, "Where is my car?" 20 minutes later, we had a location. Metro Towing's impound yard. Stevens looked at the officers around him. "Secure the scene. Rivera, you're with me." As we drove, he finally spoke. "This wasn't a mistake," he said. "This was retaliation." And he was right. Karen didn't just want my car gone. She wanted me embarrassed. Late. In trouble. Maybe written up. Maybe removed from the neighborhood. She wanted power. What she didn't realize was that the second she touched a police vehicle, this stopped being HOA business and became criminal. When we pulled into the impound lot, every tow driver froze. A half-dozen marked patrol units. A captain's unmarked car. Radios crackling. The gates slid open fast. My squad car sat there like a hostage. Doors locked. No damage. Lights still mounted. Computer still inside. Stevens photographed everything. The gate. The logs. The signature on the work order. Then he turned to the yard manager. "Who ordered the tow?" "HOA president," the man said nervously. "But the board approved it. Emergency vote last night." That sentence hit harder than anything else. Emergency vote. That meant this wasn't just Karen. This was all 5 of them. Every HOA board member. Sitting in a room. Knowing exactly whose vehicle this was. Knowing I was a police officer. Knowing it was parked in my driveway. And deciding to take it anyway. Stevens exhaled slowly. "Retrieve the vehicle," he said. "Then call legal." By the time I drove my squad car back into the neighborhood, the sun was fully up. And Karen was standing in her driveway. Waiting. Arms crossed. Chin raised. Smug. She thought this was over. She thought she'd won. She didn't realize that while she was enjoying her little victory, the entire HOA board had just stepped into a criminal conspiracy. Stevens parked behind her house. Lights off. Engine running. He looked at me once. "Stay in the car," he said. Then he stepped out and walked straight toward Karen's front door. Karen opened the door like she was greeting a delivery. That smug smile again. The kind you see on someone who thinks rules only apply to other people. "Can I help you?" she asked, eyes flicking past Captain Stevens toward my patrol car like she was checking a scoreboard. Stevens didn't step inside. He didn't introduce himself politely. "Karen Peterson," he said evenly. "You ordered the removal of a marked Plano Police Department patrol vehicle from private property at 2:15 this morning. Is that correct?" She didn't deny it. "Yes," she said, lifting her chin. "It was illegally parked. Our HOA has rules." Stevens held up a hand. "Before you continue," he said, "understand that lying to me right now would be another felony." That shook her. Just slightly. But arrogance is a powerful drug. "I had the authority," she insisted. "The board approved it. Emergency vote. That vehicle violates HOA bylaws and—" "It violates nothing," Stevens cut in. "Texas Transportation Code exempts take-home law enforcement vehicles. You were informed of this. In writing." Karen's smile faded. "You're harassing me," she snapped. "This officer has been targeting my family since my son's arrest." That's when Stevens leaned in. "Your son was arrested for DUI," he said flatly. "By the book. On camera. Your response was to conspire to steal government property. The word conspire landed hard. Karen swallowed. I didn't steal anything, she said. It was towed. Stevens nodded. Exactly. He turned slightly, speaking into his radio. Confirm HOA board members present at last night's vote. Dispatch came back quick. All 5 members participated. Minutes submitted electronically at 1:47 a.m. Emergency vote. Documented. Timestamped. Stevens looked back at Karen. Congratulations, he said. You didn't just make a bad decision. You organized a felony. Her voice cracked. You can't be serious. He was. At that moment, 2 more patrol units rolled up behind us. Then another. Neighbors started coming outside. Phones came out. Curtains moved. The street felt like it was holding its breath. Stevens spoke clearly. Loud enough for witnesses. Karen Peterson, you are being detained pending investigation for theft of government property, obstruction of justice, and criminal conspiracy. Her face went white. You can't arrest me over HOA rules. This has nothing to do with HOA rules, Stevens replied. This is criminal law. Cuffs came out. Metal clicked. And that's when Karen screamed. You're all corrupt. He set this up. He's abusing his badge. Stevens didn't react. Because now, it wasn't just about the tow. The board members started arriving. One by one. Each of them walking straight into a scene they didn't expect. And when Stevens began reading their names off the emergency vote record, the realization spread across their faces like fire. They weren't witnesses. They were suspects. The first board member arrived still holding a coffee mug. He laughed when he saw the patrol cars. Actually laughed. Wow, he said, looking around. Bit dramatic for a parking issue, huh? Captain Stevens didn't smile. He simply asked, Did you vote in favor of towing a marked Plano Police Department patrol vehicle at 1:47 a.m.? The man blinked. I mean, yeah. Karen said legal cleared it. Stevens nodded once. Turn around. Confusion flashed across his face. Then fear. What? Wait. The cuffs clicked shut. That's when the laughter died. The second board member tried a different tactic. She started crying before Stevens even finished the question. Said she was just following HOA procedure. Said she didn't know it was illegal. Said Karen told them it was allowed. Stevens listened. Patient. Calm. Then said, Ignorance of the law is not a defense. Cuffs. The third one didn't argue. He saw the paperwork. The timestamps. The signed vote record. He just sighed and said, I knew this was a bad idea. Cuffs. By now, the street looked like a crime scene. 7 patrol cars. Neighbors filming openly. Kids being pulled back inside by parents who suddenly realized this wasn't HOA drama. This was real. Karen was sitting on the curb shaking. This is because of my son, she whispered. You're punishing me. Stevens crouched in front of her. No, he said. You punish yourself. The 4th and 5th board members arrived together. One tried to leave. The other tried to hide behind procedural jargon. Neither worked. Because Stevens had already made the call to the district attorney. And the DA was very interested in 5 civilians conspiring to retaliate against a police officer by stealing a government vehicle. Every charge was stacking. Theft of government property. Criminal conspiracy. Obstruction of justice. Retaliation against a public servant. Felonies. Career ending. Reputation destroying. House sale ruining felonies. As Karen was lifted to her feet, she finally looked at me. Not angry. Terrified. This isn't over, she said quietly. I didn't answer. Because she was right. It wasn't over. As the last cruiser pulled away, Stevens turned to me. You okay? He asked. I nodded. Yes, sir. Good, he said. Because the civil side of this, is going to be worse for them. That's when I noticed something else. HOA bylaws posted on the community website were already being quietly edited. And Karen's husband was standing in their doorway, staring at the empty curb where his wife had been sitting. Because the arrests were just the beginning. What came next would dismantle the HOA entirely. The arrests happened fast. The consequences did not. By noon, the story had jumped neighborhoods. By evening, it hit local Facebook groups. By the next morning, it was on a regional news site. HOA board arrested after towing police vehicle in retaliation case. And that headline was only the surface. Because once lawyers got involved, everything the HOA had ever touched started unraveling. The district attorney wasted no time. Charges were formally filed against all 5 board members. Felony counts. No plea deals. No quiet dismissals. The DA made it very clear, retaliation against a public servant is taken personally. Karen's attorney tried to spin it as a misunderstanding. The judge didn't buy it. Especially after the body cam footage, the emails, the violation notices, and the emergency vote record were all entered into evidence. Every message showed motive. Every timestamp showed intent. Meanwhile, the HOA went into panic mode. Without a board, they had no authority. Bank accounts were frozen pending audit. Contracts, landscaping, towing, legal retainers were suspended. And that's when the residents started asking questions. Where had the money been going? Why were fines so aggressive lately? How many other emergency votes had happened in the middle of the night? Turns out, quite a few. An audit revealed thousands in questionable expenditures. Legal fees paid to firms that had never filed anything. Towing kickbacks. Selective enforcement. Karen hadn't just abused power once. She'd been running the HOA like a personal revenge machine. Then came the civil lawsuits. Mine was first. Wrongful tow. Emotional distress. Retaliation. Abuse of authority. But it didn't stop there. 3 neighbors sued over illegal fines. Another over a forced lien. One elderly couple over threats of foreclosure. The HOA's insurance carrier took one look at the charges and dropped them. Instantly. No coverage. No protection. The HOA tried to hold an emergency community meeting. Only 12 people showed up. Half were lawyers. And that's when the motion was introduced. To dissolve the HOA entirely. It passed unanimously. Willow Creek Estates stopped being an HOA community that night. Karen was released on bond 2 days later. She didn't come home. Their house went up for sale 3 months later. Quietly. Below market value. Her son's DUI case moved forward without interference. And my patrol car? It still sits in my driveway. But now, when I park it, neighbors don't just wave. They smile. Because they watched what happens when someone mistakes authority for immunity. And when an HOA Karen forgets one critical thing. You can bully neighbors. You cannot bully the law. You'd think that would be the end of it. Arrests. Charges. HOA dissolved. Karma delivered. But the aftermath is where the story really tightened its grip. Because once the board fell, the truth started coming out from places no one expected. 2 weeks after the arrests, I got a call, not from internal affairs, not from the DA, but from a neighbor I barely knew. Mid-40s. Quiet. Always avoided HOA meetings. He said one sentence that stuck with me. You weren't the first one she targeted. You were just the one she picked a fight with. Turns out Karen had been collecting enemies long before my patrol car. Selective enforcement. Threatening letters. Fines issued only to people who challenged her. One neighbor had been fined for a flag. 2 faded. Another for parking a work truck overnight, despite 3 board members doing the same thing. A single mom had been threatened with a lien over trash cans left out for 20 minutes too long. And every time someone pushed back, Karen would say the same thing. You don't want problems with the HOA. What she meant was you don't want problems with me. The DA's office started receiving affidavits. Written statements. Screenshots of emails. voicemails, all showing a pattern. Retaliation wasn't the exception. It was the system. That's when the charges expanded. Karen's case was severed from the rest of the board. Because evidence showed she wasn't just participating. She was directing. The other 4 board members were offered reduced charges in exchange for testimony. They took it. All of them. One by one, they confirmed what we already suspected, that Karen pushed for the tow, dismissed legal warnings, and framed it as a lesson. Her exact words, according to sworn testimony? He needs to remember who runs this neighborhood. That line made it into the court transcript. And once it did, the judge's tone changed permanently. Meanwhile, I was pulled into a review, not disciplinary, but procedural. Standard when an officer is involved in a high-profile case. Body cam reviewed. Reports reviewed. Captain Stevens' decisions reviewed. Everything cleared. In fact, the department issued a memo clarifying take-home vehicle protections, citing my case. Karen's attempt to hurt my career ended up strengthening policy department-wide. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Then came sentencing recommendations. Karen was facing real time. Her attorney begged for leniency. Claimed stress. Claimed emotional distress over her son's arrest. Claimed she lost perspective. The DA responded with one sentence. She abused power to retaliate against law enforcement and intimidate civilians. That's not stress. That's character. Court date set. Media present. Karen didn't look powerful anymore. No suit. No heels. Hair pulled back. Hands shaking. As she was led past the benches, her eyes met mine for a split second. There was no anger left. Only realization. Because she finally understood something too late. HOAs only feel powerful when people are afraid to push back. But the moment the law shows up, they crumble. And the judge hadn't even spoken yet. The courtroom was silent when the judge adjusted his glasses. Not the quiet of boredom. The kind of silence that knows a life is about to change. Karen stood at the defense table, hands folded so tightly her knuckles had gone white. No confidence left. No speeches. Just a woman finally realizing that authority borrowed from an HOA handbook doesn't protect you from criminal law. The judge didn't rush. He reviewed the charges. The testimony. The emergency vote. The emails. The retaliation. Then he looked directly at her. Ms. Peterson, he said, you were entrusted with limited authority to serve a community. You used it to settle personal scores. He paused. Worse, you coordinated the theft of a marked police vehicle to intimidate a public servant. Karen's attorney asked for probation. The judge shook his head. Probation is for mistakes, he said. This was a calculated abuse of power. Sentence imposed. No jail sentence long-term, but felony convictions on her record. Heavy fines. Mandatory community service. Permanent removal from any HOA leadership role. Civil liability still pending. Career destroyed. Reputation gone. Authority erased. The other board members received reduced sentences, but still walked out as convicted felons. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. They asked me how it felt. I told them the truth. This was never about my patrol car, I said. It was about accountability. Willow Creek Estates never reinstated an HOA. Neighbors started organizing block events. Kids played in the streets again. No violation letters. No threats. No fines taped to doors. And my driveway? Still has a patrol car. Still legal. Still protected. But now it represents something different. Not power. Not intimidation. A reminder that when someone mistakes control for authority, when they think a title makes them untouchable, and when they forget that rules apply to everyone, reality eventually knocks. And it doesn't ask permission. So if you ever think about abusing a little power to get revenge, remember Karen. Because she didn't just lose an argument. She lost everything.